Well, guess what?
Back again.
It's back.
Back again.
Yeah.
And we're back. And we're back.
They're back again.
Back again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Back Again Sequel Podcast, the only podcast that takes a sequel from the past and finds out if it was worth going back again. As always, I'm Matt, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is an actor, he is a Jurassic Park aficionado, and, fun fact, he's the one that told Michael Crichton to drop the from Jurassic Park. It is Bear Lyle. Bear.
Hello, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thanks so much for being with us. And as it said, you're a Jurassic Park aficionado, which means today we are doing the follow-up to Jurassic Park from 1993, and we are doing The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Mommy! Daddy! I found something!
A British family on a yacht cruise stumbled upon Site B.
And now it's only a matter of time before this lost world is found and pillaged.
Hopefully we've kept this island quarantined and contained, but I'm in shock about all this.
The hell was that?
Go. As fast as you can.
I need you to send rescue immediately.
Taking dinosaurs off this island is the worst idea in history of bad ideas.
The Lost World Jurassic Park comes out in 1997. It's once again directed by Steven Spielberg and written by David Koepp. It's starring Jeff Goldblum, Vanessa Lee Chester, Richard Attenborough, Pete Postlethwaite, Julianne Moore, and Vince Vaughn. The Lost World takes place 4 years after the events of the first Jurassic Park, where a research team formed by John Hammond is sent to the Jurassic Park Site B island to study the dinosaurs there, while an InGen team led by Hammond's nephew approaches with another agenda. All right, Bear, so here we are. We're doing The Lost World, but it's appropriate because not only do we have the new Jurassic World Rebirth coming out, I thought it'd be interesting, and you actually were the one that kind of inspired this, to go back and let's look at the first sequel that started off all these Jurassic Park sequels.
Exactly, which I truly believe, and of course we can dive into it later when we're talking about, like, should this exist or does it work as a sequel? I truly believe this is the movie that inspired the entire Jurassic World franchise to, like, trilogy and beyond to be created.
It's interesting seeing, like, where this started. And it right off the bat, just with the fact that, hey, by the way, there are more dinosaurs on this island. They're just located on, you know, the southern point or 80 miles east or west or whatever. Site B. And I know it's like a joke when you get to, like, you know, Fallen Kingdom, where it's like, how big is this island? Like, where they can fit all these dinosaurs on it.
Exactly, yeah. Just like, I think they only revisit Site A like once more, but a lot of the rest of the franchise takes place at Site B. So it really did just become the franchise playground for the rest of the time.
Yeah. You know, it is interesting going back and seeing, like, how they started to think, like, well, what can we do if we were going to do a sequel? And at that time, I know that it's been, you know, said that, like, Michael Crichton didn't even have, like, a book written yet. And, like, he was writing the book while, like, Steven Spielberg and David Koepp were, like, trying to come up with an idea. So they were kind of, like, throwing ideas back and forth. And maybe we could do this and maybe we can do that. And for something that was thrown together so, like, because of the fact and because you had David Koepp, like, directing a lot of this movie, and, like, you know, and Steven Spielberg's doing it from, like, monitor, like, back home. It should be a lot worse than what it is, but it's not. And that's kind of like my little, like, I'm gonna have thoughts about it, but in general, like, it should be a lot worse considering where the franchise does go with trying to, like, recycle a lot of these ideas or just justifications as to why people keep going back to this fucking island.
I do believe, truly and without bias, critically, that this movie is the second best Jurassic Park, Jurassic World movie in the entire franchise. But a lot of critic reviews are unyielding on it, especially when we get to the Rotten Tomatoes portion. And I think it's one of those movies that truly suffers from this movie is bad because it's not the original. It's not bad like Jaws 2 bad, but I found most of all is that this movie, it has the same soul as the first Jurassic Park. which I think fits in the genre of sci-fi, horror, suspense. And I think that's what makes it work. But it lacks the wit of the original one. But by no means is this movie like awful garbage just because it doesn't live up to the original.
Yeah, and I do think that there's an obvious like shift in what kind of movie this is going to be, even from the first opening scene, because when you have that great matching cut of after the little girl gets eaten and then the mom yells and you cut to Jeff Goldblum like yawning at like the subway, but it's like that's Spielberg saying like this is going to be the monster movie now. Basically the third act of the last movie, that's going to be the whole movie for this. So I do think that like at least it kind of gives you a heads up before we get too deep into the plot, you know?
Yeah, because I think that that's what these movies are. They are monster movies. But then that transition into Ian Malcolm yawning at the subway, that's one of those movies I can be like, okay, it still has like some of the original like funny wit because it's a mother watching her daughter get ripped apart, turning into a guy yawning at a subway.
And I do think like just to talk about Ian Malcolm, he is definitely the audience in this movie, especially for the first like 20 minutes where he is, you know, not only visiting John Hammond and he's getting persuaded to go back to the island, but just with the lines that he says where John Hammond's like, you're going to go back to the island. And Ian Malcolm's like,
John? No. Of course. No.
The way he's delivering the no's are so like it feels like a screenwriter or somebody whose arm is being twisted to make the sequel. But I'm okay with it because it still makes sense that like his girlfriend's there and he's got to go. This became a rescue mission. Like we hit all the beats. It's just interesting seeing those two kind of different. I don't know if it's like tones, but just like, hey, let's have some fun and then let's justify where we're gonna have some fun.
Oh no, absolutely. And another major part of it is it's Jeff Goldblum's delivery. Yeah, like a lot of this movie skates by because of like Jeff Goldblum, but it's great because you're right, he does have those great lines when he's meeting with John Hammond at the beginning and he's become like, as they say, a born again naturalist versus his old capitalist ways. And then he says like, he says to Ian Malcolm, I'm not looking to make the same mistakes twice. And Ian Malcolm just like, covering his head with his hand says,
No, you're making all new ones. John, okay, so there's another island with dinosaurs, no fences this time, and you want to send people in, very few people, on the ground, right?
Right.
And that brings up a good point too, because this whole reinvention of John Hammond being from a capitalist to a naturalist, this is the first time, and it will not be the last time, that movies will then alter what John Hammond's like motivation was for making the park. Because in Jurassic World, not to talk too much about it, but they make the park and then it's Bryce Dallas Howard that's like, this is what John Hammond wanted. It's like, no, he learned his lesson at the first one. And then when you get to Fallen Kingdom, not to talk about that movie either, but there's a whole other old man character that he's like, I was best friends with John Hammond and I know what he really wanted for the animals. And it's like,
you were the farmer from Babe.
I give you a morning golden and true.
To get a little bit into the Rotten Tomatoes score, since we were talking about that as well. So the first Jurassic Park has a Rotten Tomatoes score of a 91% critically and a 91% audience score. The second one has a 56% critical score and a 52% audience score. Personally, I think that's a little harsh. I was surprised that the audience score was lower because I thought the audience score would at least be like 68, 70%. And if I had to give it a critical score, I would give it at least a 60.
Rationally, trying to think as an unbiased individual, I'd put it in the early 70s because they do have these amazing set pieces that you could tell that's classic, like Spielberg, that's classic, like, real suspenseful, engaging. The music is still amazing. The cinematography, if you watch it, it's still great. And then, the graphics, the CGI is still like very passable. And this is something that was made in 1997 or 1996.
Yeah, and at least to its credit that they do try to go in a different direction, even just like visually, like the cinematography. Like one thing that I really like about this sequel is the fact that it looks more kind of real worldy. Feels like a war movie. It's like, it's very like gray, like there's a lot of shadows and a lot of it's shot at night, which is really interesting. A lot more than the first one, I think. But there is also, and I know people have said this before, there's a lot more CGI. So as much as I like the cinematography of it, it does also feel like, well, we're going to use that to our advantage because we're going to have a lot more CGI dinosaurs instead of practical ones.
Yeah. And I definitely, especially this time around watching it, was keeping an eye out for like, when do they use puppets? When do they use CGI? And once again, like the puppets look amazing. And, you know, as technology, like television technology continues to increase, when we get like 4K and all these like crystal clear, it's going to make dated CGI look a little bit worse. Like anytime that they just have to go full CGI and they don't have the cover of night or storms to cover up, you do notice. But to your credit, you're absolutely right. In this movie, there's a lot more jungle. There's a lot more just like carnage because of like, you know, camps being destroyed. It's very much more like a gritty war movie. And then you even have the personalized version of it where Ian Malcolm, it's like the PTSD soldier. It's like, I've seen things and like, you know, I'm not funny anymore, but he still is. So
I really think that Jeff Goldblum is the glue that holds this movie together. Without Jeff Goldblum, like, and I know that that's not like saying anything revolutionary, but like, there's just a way he delivers lines that's so like we're in on the joke with him a lot of the times, which makes it really digestible. And even though he's got some like cheesy kind of action lines, the obvious one is the
Mommy's very angry.
Yeah, it's cheesy, but it's I don't know. I like his delivery, so he holds it together a lot.
Very dry, sarcastic, like once again meta, like he's turning towards the camera and nudging us and being like, the fuck's wrong with these guys? Like,
yeah. Even, and then just to go back to like the dinosaurs again with the puppets versus the CGI, the one thing that I do wish that they had more practicals of were the velociraptors in this one, because that is by far, it feels like the most like tagged on. And my gosh, that whole velociraptor chasing Jeff Goldblum, his daughter, and Julianne Moore, those kind of scenes feel more formulaic than they do kind of naturally what would happen with the plot like the first one.
You don't even have to juxtapose that hokey raptor scene to the first Jurassic Park. You can just juxtapose it to that raptor scene that preceded the gas station one, which was the tall grass.
Because though you get practical, you don't have to show the entire raptor body. Also, the way it's shot, the raptors, their heads and tails rising up out of the grass, that entire sequence is amazing. And then you follow it up with that engine gas station scene with Ian and Sarah and Kelly. And the raptors just kind of turn into like dumb dogs as opposed to cold, calculating like killers and hunters as we know them to be.
So like for you, the tall grass scene is kind of the one that really sticks out. I would say for me, because I do like that scene as well, but I really do like the double trucks getting pushed over the cliff, and the two T-Rexes are essentially like working together to like push the trailer off the cliff. And I love the guy from The West Wing that helps out.
Richard Schiff,
Yeah, I love him trying to not only get the rope secured to the tree, but then also trying to get the trailer hooked up to his car, and he keeps falling in the mud. And then when he's getting some success, the T-Rexes decide to come back, and they're like, hey, we're trying to kill these guys. Why are you helping? And then they just eat him, which I had forgotten about that he dies. And it sucks, you know, but...
Exactly. It's easily the most tragic death. But I think that action sequence is the perfect encapsulation of this movie because it's great. It's suspenseful. Julianne Moore on the glass as it's starting to splinter, and it becomes a race against time as Ian is trying to like help her out while Nick is trying to grab the satellite phone before it falls. And then the music, everything throughout, it's amazing. But you have to block out the fact the T-Rexes came back and forth 3 times.
Yeah.
The initial time to get their infant, and then they just leave. And then they come back to work together to push the trailer over the cliff. And then they leave. And then they come back after Eddie is trying to help them. So they come to the camp 3 times.
Yeah. The one thing also in that sequence, like not to, because I do like Julianne Moore's character a lot, but when she's on that glass, like there's a moment where he's like, stay still. And she like lifts her hand and it's like, girl, like you got to keep the weight like the same on the glass. So there's that scene. And then there's later when she's wearing the jacket that still has baby T-Rex blood on it that then leads the T-Rexes to them. Just like two little dumb moments that were little like tropey suspense moments. Then they were like, this woman's a scientist.
Yeah, like, and it's also, they talk about earlier, her training and experience to be able to go to this island was that she spent a lot of time in Africa studying like African predators who are sensitive to the smell of blood. And she's walking around a jungle with T-Rex blood on her. Even Roland Timbo, like the master, like game hunter, sees that she's wearing it. And he's like, oh, are you wounded? She's like, no, it's blood from the Rex baby. And he's like, oh, well then, yeah, don't worry about it. It's like, come on, guys. So that whenever it leads into that other action sequence of the Rex chasing the survivors, like into the waterfall, it kicks off because she has that jacket hanging up in the wind, and she even looks at it and goes, oh no. Just like, what did you expect? You've been wearing it for a day. You're lucky nothing worse has happened.
Yeah. Staying with Julianne Moore's intelligence and like, you know, the things that she was studying in Africa, you know, this movie is a lot about parents and children, family, I guess, if you will. And it made more sense why, you know, the baby T-Rex is introduced, then later how they use it to get it back to the ship and everything, and correlating with Jeff Goldblum and his daughter. And I turned to my girlfriend at the time and I was like, did they ever say in the first movie if Jeff Goldblum has a daughter, or is this really just a new piece of information?
Oh, they did. They were sitting in the car in the first one. He asked, like, do you have kids? And Jeff Goldblum says, oh, me? Oh, yeah, love kids. So, yeah.
Okay. It's just interesting how all of a sudden he's got this daughter and the way in which she gets to the island, because there was something confusing about how she hid in the trailer. And then who dropped off the trailer? The people that were back at that first engine group, but then they left the island. So like, we're just going to drop off the trailer at the spot and then we're going back. But there is, I mean, this speaks to, in general, what they do in the sequel, which is like, let's go. Let's just move past it. Let's just get the people we need to get to there so that way we can have the set pieces. But, you know, it's whatever. I just thought it was funny.
It's implying that she spent the better part of a day, because I know that really soon after Ian is meeting with all of them at the garage where the vehicles are being assembled and everything, which is when I'm assuming the daughter stowed away, that Ian wanted this expedition instead of 3 days later to happen like next day so they could get to the island to find Sarah. So basically the movie is implying that Kelly was just stowed away in some cabinet or closet on this trailer for about a day, which is serial killer levels of dedication to being in an enclosed space, silent, without food, water, or anything for hours.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that when I was watching. It's like, this is insane.
Well, this girl is confident. She not only has the drive to hide in a trailer alone, isolated for a whole day, but also to look at a bunch of bars and decide, like, I'm going to jump on these bars really quick and spin around in order to kick this raptor out of the window.
You know what's going to make that scene even worse for you, Matt? She begins that bar routine before the raptor even jumps up.
I noticed that too.
To confront Ian. And so it really, if you think about that, it really looks like she just decides to jump on the bars and start doing a gym routine without any sort of motive whatsoever.
Well, another interesting family dynamic that we have in this is the introduction that John Hammond has a nephew that also works for InGen. And that not only is he like, I guess the retcon that they do is that, once again, just like the other sequels, he actually knows what John Hammond wants, which was John Hammond's original plan was to take the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park and build it in San Diego, but it was grander that made him go to the island instead, and agreed, and the idea of something bigger. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that they wanted to put the park on that island because of living conditions for the dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, I think literally it is Hammond being like, no, it needs to be on this island so that, people can come to it. It can be a full experience instead of just zoo enclosures and cages and everything like that.
Yeah, and as far as that guy's performance, I don't remember his name. I'll probably put it in later here.
Alice Howard.
But that guy, I don't know. He and the rest of the bad guys are interesting in this movie because they're bad guys, but they're not like necessarily competent bad guys, nor are they like mustache twirling bad guys. They're kind of just like, I think he's by far the most boring out of all the bad guys. And maybe they're trying to push it as like, this is little Hammond Jr. who doesn't understand. Because I guess you have Jeff Goldblum say that whole thing, which is like, now you're John Hammond.
Yeah, like Peter Ludlow is just kind of a wannabe John Hammond who insists that he's not making all of Hammond's mistakes. In fact, in one of the 2 deleted scenes from the Lost World Jurassic Park that you could watch on YouTube pretty easily, one of them is...
In Peter Ludlow's introduction, he is hosting the Board of Investors meeting and proposing the idea of wresting control of InGen from John Hammond, in lieu of the tragedies and deaths proceeding in the first Jurassic Park, basically implying that John Hammond is no longer mentally fit to run this company, so I vote that we take control from him so that I can inherit it so that I can run it.
The other one is Roland Timbo. His introduction, he's in Mombasa. His friend Ajay is introducing the idea of this expedition to Isla Sorna. And so and then he gets into a silly bar fight, like defending a girl in which like he has one hand literally tied behind his back as he beats up a loud, raunchy American guy and everything. It's just like, okay, you're trying to say this guy's a badass. Great.
And it's interesting too, because, the movie's only like 2 hours and 8 minutes with credits, but I do think you could have cut some stuff out of this movie. For example, if you cut the silly raptors chasing after, at the gas station, that whole like cartoon scene, if you cut that, I think they could still just go to because immediately after that, they go to the helicopter. And that's right after they just survived the tall grass.
I think you can just cut that whole San Diego sequence.
All right, we can talk about the San Diego sequence. So obviously, the San Diego sequence was originally supposed to be for the 3rd movie, but then Steven Spielberg was like, I got no way to end this movie, so we're gonna do it for now. To connect that with the Raptors, what I always found interesting, and even more so rewatching this the other day, was when the boat arrives to San Diego and the crew is dead on the boat, we are to believe that the T-Rex broke out of his containment, killed everyone on the boat, and then got back in his containment with the door opened ajar. Because my suspicion is that originally, like, there was supposed to be some raptors on that boat that killed everybody, but then they realized, like, well, we can't have a raptor and a T-Rex and a baby T-Rex, which further confirms for me that you didn't need the raptors because you are introducing a baby T-Rex and like more T-Rex stuff, I guess, if you will. But like when that boat lands, who the fuck killed these guys on that boat?
You are absolutely 100%
that scene is infuriating.
And it's once again another encapsulation of the Lost World being like, hey, shut up, don't think about it. Wasn't that boat crash cool? And now we have a T-Rex in San Diego. Don't think about it. Shut up.
But you're absolutely right. The reason those crew members are dead is because they meant to have raptors on that ship. But then I guess they realized that the situation would get messy and out of control very quickly. So they're essentially asking you to suspend disbelief and believe that that T-Rex got loose,
killed all these people, and then I guess with his dying breath, the boat captain was able to trap the Rex and its baby back in the holding cargo cell, which, fine, whatever, cool.
I don't know if I like this. This scene really kind of takes me out a little bit every time. And it is the Godzilla nod when you have the 4 Asian men in suits running away, and then I believe what they're saying, what I found is, I left Tokyo to get away from stuff like this.
That is exactly right.
And it's like, what are we doing? Like, it just feels like at this point, like they're just throwing whatever they can just to get through the shoot, because I guess Spielberg was like miserable during the shoot on some level. So he was like, let's just go.
Yeah, you're right. Like if you put on the subtitles, those 4 Japanese people running away, they literally say, "I left Japan to get away from this." The other fun fact is, that one guy who kind of breaks away from the running crowd to like go into a store, and the T-Rex follows him and grabs him and eats him. That's David Koepp.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's credited as Unlucky Bastard.
One little moment in Lost World that I actually really liked when I was watching it, it's after Tembo successfully tranks the T-Rex. And the reveal that because they do this thing where he's putting in the dart and we don't know if he's going to get it in time before shooting the T-Rex. And it's not until Hammond Jr. shows up in this scene. There's no dialogue in the scene. It's all quiet. But Hammond Jr. shows up and then he's just looking out like in awe. And then he just I think rack focuses to Tembo just sitting there quietly with like his legs folded. And I was like, this is such a interesting way of showcasing this that tonally doesn't even match the rest of the movie that we've been watching, but it's just one of those things where it's like, here's a great moment in Lost World. And I think that's what this movie is. There's lots of really great moments, but the moments don't always necessarily fit together. And I think it's just because they were just kind of making it up as they went along.
I mean, I think that scene is taken straight from the philosophy of Jaws. You don't always have to see the creature to make it engaging, which I got to go on a just fan rant about like Pete Postlethwaite, Roland Tembo. I think he's the best character in this movie. Like we talk about how many one-liners that Jeff Goldblum is just chewing on. Nothing compared to Roland.
This is a game trail, Mr. Ludlow. Carnivores hunt on game trails. Do you want to set up base camp or a buffet?
Where do you think you're going?
To collect my fee, Mr. Ludlow, to collect my fee.
Just fed. I assume you're talking about Eddie. You might show a little respect. The man saved our lives by giving his.
Then his troubles are over. My point is that predators don't hunt when they're not hungry.
No, only humans do.
Oh, you're breaking our hearts. Saddle up. Let's get this movable feast underway. I believe I've spent enough time in the company of death.
He's incredible. I need to watch more stuff of his, but he's definitely my favorite character in this whole movie.
So just to get into the budget and the box office a little bit, so this is going to be, obviously a little different, but the first Jurassic Park that comes out in 1993, it's got a budget of $63 million, and it makes over $1 billion at the box office.
Rookie numbers.
$1.058 billion.
What are we doing here? Come on.
The second one gets a $10 million bump, and it's got a $73 million budget, and it only makes $618.6 million at the box office. And obviously I'm saying only makes, that's still a success, but it didn't make $1 billion. And I think for a while it held like some records for like opening weekend, Friday to Saturday, bump. But after that second week, it had a pretty big drop because people, once they saw it, they were like, this isn't the same as the first one, but still made, over $500 million, which is good. And not only that, it continued the fandom of this franchise, which kind of brings you up a little bit because you are a gigantic Jurassic Park fan. How has Jurassic Park impacted your life? And do you have fun toys or anything like that?
I am absolutely shaped by Jurassic Park. I have about 3 storage crates filled with dinosaurs, equipment, vehicles.
And I was also very lucky to come to your wedding. And why don't you tell what happened at your wedding?
Well, it's so funny because my wife and I were trying to think of music to walk down the aisle to have our wedding parties walk down the aisle to. And as a joke, I literally threw out the classic Jurassic Park theme. And my wife goes, no. And I was like, okay, but... And I play it and we stand up and we kind of act it out as each wedding party member going. And as time goes by and we're doing it and the music's going on, she kind of just looks at me and just goes, oh my God, are we going to do this? Why does this work so well? And I'm like, because it's John Williams. It's Jurassic Park. So lo and behold, my wedding party walked down the aisle to Jurassic Park, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh my gosh. Well, the two great things that have come out of the Jurassic Park franchise, one being the fact that you used the theme song for your wedding, and I would say the strong second contender would be the SNL sketch that Jeff Goldblum did in 1996, hosting SNL for promotion of Lost World, where him and Will Ferrell do Harry Carey, teaches you about the universe.
Gosh, yes.
Which I'll play a little bit of the clip now.
Hey, now, kid, we all know that the moon is not made of green cheese.
Yes, that's true, Harry.
But what if it were made of barbecue spare ribs? Would you eat it then?
What?
I know I would. Heck, I'd have seconds. And then polish it off with a tall, cool Budweiser.
So as always on this podcast, we ask 3 questions that lead to a final decision of if the sequel is worth going back again. And the first question is, does it work as a sequel? And since you're our guest, you can start it off, Bear.
I thought about this question way harder than I should have, and just thought about, for a sequel to work, I think about the characters, the world, and then the culture and setting before the movie, and if they're changed at the end of the movie. At the beginning, you have this island full of dinosaurs, a bunch of people go to it, some of them get killed, havoc ensues, and then the remainder leave, and then that island of dinosaurs is just the way it is. Yeah. And so nothing really changes. So the only way that I can answer this is as a fan, and I gotta say, yes, the sequel works because it's, once again, a movie directed by Steven Spielberg, air quotes, featuring dinosaurs. And if I could look into the future at that time to see what Jurassic movies would follow, I would not take this one for granted.
Yeah, it's interesting because you really were setting that up as if you were going to give it an X, and then you said, but as a fan, I'm giving it a check.
And it's for the fans, okay? This movie is not for the critics. It's not for the awards, the Academy. This is for the fans.
Yeah, and I do agree with you because our characters do not necessarily learn anything or change by the end of the movie. It's not like Jeff Goldblum connects with his daughter more. In fact, she's out of the entire third act. It's not like him and Julianne more. I mean, what was interesting about it is they're not really fighting at the beginning of this movie, which most movies I feel like would do. They're just like together, and she even says to him like, I love you, I just don't need you right now. I thought maybe that was a setup for something later. But yeah, none of the characters learn anything, and the only thing that really does have an arc is the world itself, in regards to people not knowing about the island or not believing that this actually happened in the first one, and then the exposure of dinosaurs where the world then does believe. But we don't even get to see the joy of, like, you know, maybe Jeff Goldblum's character being vindicated, because at the beginning of the movie he's getting like trashed in the press for being like a liar, but then at the end he proves it, and it's not like he gets his aha moment. And I just think that's because they didn't plan out an actual story. They just wanted to do like a plot heavy movie. So it's weird for me because I do think it works as a sequel strictly just off of like a reason to get people back around dinosaurs again, but I don't think it works as a sequel as the story about mankind's interference with dinosaurs and what it means like to play God and what it means to like grow as a person. So I originally was going to give this a check, but I'm actually going to give it an X. It doesn't work as a sequel for me. They at least don't even pay off the thing they put so much focus on in the beginning, which is people not knowing about the dinosaurs and Jeff Goldblum being kind of wrung out in the press. And by the end of the movie, obviously people know about dinosaurs now, so that gets vindicated. But it's going to be like 51-49 for me. I'm going to say it doesn't work as a sequel just because of the fact that they don't finish it. So that sounds like it's going to get 1 check and 1 X. So the next question is going to be, is it enjoyable / entertaining? I'll start off this one real quick, and I will say, yeah, I would, for the, it's like 60-40 enjoyable, entertaining. There are things that drag, and there is that really dumb raptor sequence at the gas station, but Jeff Goldblum, the big set pieces that they do, and just the choices that they made to make it a little bit more like mature and serious with the cinematography. I do like the T-Rex in San Diego at the end. So it's a little, I think they could have cut it, like I said, a little bit, but overall I'll give it a check. It is enjoyable / entertaining.
I also give it a check. It is very entertaining, is very enjoyable. Like I said, I think this movie suffers critically from it not being the first one, but you know, you think about the trailers hanging over the cliff. You think about the raptor tall grass scene. You think about the Rex chase like into the waterfall. Don't think too much about the sequence of events that lead up to those set pieces, but still it's a Spielberg and kept once again being able to create suspense and drama out of situations you really wouldn't think of. And I think, once again, I keep harping on how Lost World contains the soul of Jurassic Park in that it has these sequences with the trailer that you wouldn't think of originally because it doesn't explicitly involve dinosaurs. Yeah. But it's still so fun. And then when you have dinosaurs on screen, even if it is hokey, like the second Velociraptor scene, you still enjoy it because it's dinosaurs on screen.
So that sounds like it's going to get 2 checks. So the last question is going to be, does it need to exist? You're our Jurassic Park fanatic. This was your decision to pick this movie. Does this sequel, more so, need to exist?
I mean, it's going to be a check mark because it needs to exist simply because it makes us grateful for not having 1, but 2 Spielberg dinosaur films. And also, that San Diego sequence, it inspires like all of that Jurassic World sequence. Yeah. Like, we could have had that one standalone movie and been like, great, nobody ever touches dinosaur movies ever again. Spielberg won, it's done. But like, all the toys, all the drawings I did, the amount of influence that multiple Jurassic Park movies like had on my life, I don't think would like be as fulfilled if we didn't have The Lost World.
This one's hard for me because something that we really didn't address, but we should have, is that this is a rare sequel because it is following a staple movie that not only impacted culture so tremendously, but is also considered like a perfect movie. So they had a lot going against them when they're making this movie, and I think I would have changed my vote a little bit more if they really did, and I'm going to be a little snooty right now, but if they really did be like, what's the story? And there's parts of the story that are in Lost World, but they don't finish it off. Because they didn't finish the story, I'm going to be just a little bit harsh, and I'm going to say it doesn't need to exist. Like, it doesn't give us anything further. It's just a good time. And so for that, it's like, I'm not going to like, shame it for that, because there's far more sequels on this list that like do not need to exist or even need to be talked about. But this one can be talked about, but I don't think it needs to exist, unfortunately. So if you're doing that math at home, that's going to be 4 checks and 2 X's, which means it is going to get a giant check for worth going back again. I'm okay with it. You know what I mean?
I mean, and going into this, I knew exactly how I was going to vote to simply offset Matt's votes to make sure this movie won under any circumstance necessary. So yeah, of course, absolutely.
As always, thanks everyone for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, and you comment below. You can listen to all these episodes of the Back Again Sequel podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts, or you could watch these episodes with video on YouTube. Just subscribe to wag.productions. Bear, thanks so much for being on this episode today, for bringing all your Jurassic Park love. It's been a while since we did an episode, so it's nice to bring it back to life, as they do the dinosaurs, if you will.
Well, as the tagline for Lost World says, something has survived.
All right, everyone, we will see you next time.
I'm back again.
All right.
All right, now let's do it for real.
Oh, shit.